Before we discuss about materials and shaders and textures, there is something very important I need to mention first, and that will be the rendering engines. Rendering engine is a piece of program responsible for converting our 3D objects and scenes into beautiful images or animations or real-time graphics. In Blender, we can see a pull-down list which is located on top by default. These are the rendering engines available inside Blender. We can see Blender Render, Blender Game, and Cycles Render in this list. If you install third-party renderers, you may even find more options in here than these defaults. If you install Blender 2.8, which is still in beta, when I record this video, you can find additional renderer called Eevee in this list. Now, understanding in what rendering engine you are working on is essential as materials and shaders behave differently on each of these rendering engine. Quick explanation about each of these engine can do. First is Blender Render. This is the default and the classic rendering engine. It is perfect for non-photorealistic rendering and for other types of work that require you to export the model to other software. For example, if we create 3D game assets that we want to export later to Unity or Godot or Unreal, for example, then you should stick with this Blender Render engine, as it has basic materials that are compatible with most external applications. Second is the Blender Game Engine. This engine is designed to create game directly inside Blender, so this option will actually transform Blender into a game engine like Unity. The bad news is, Blender Game Engine is very limited in terms of, well, a lot of things. It is the least developed feature in Blender. That is why you almost never see commercial games published with Blender Game Engine, at least not today. Okay, now Blender Game Engine uses the same material with Blender Render Engine. The last one is Cycles Render Engine. This rendering engine is comparable to any modern GI renderer such as V-Ray, Corona, Octane, Arnold, etc. It is used to create beautiful rendered images or animations using unbiased, physically correct lighting simulation. Because of its physical nature, Cycles Rendering Engine needs to use its own material data structure and shaders, different from what we usually have in the Blender Render Engine. In Blender, you can convert a default material to a Cycles material, but the bad news is, although modern game engines like Unity move to physically correct material system as their standard, just like how Cycles work, their materials are not compatible with Cycles material. At least that is the case by the time I record this video. So if you are designing game assets for Unity Game Engine, you should stick with the standard materials. But again, the world of computer graphics moves very fast. Who knows, in the near future, we can use Cycles materials in Blender and seamlessly convert them to Unity or Unreal or Godot or any external game engine outside Blender.